For our first show of 2024, we will be featuring stories surrounding this year's Day of Remembrance in our community. For our pastry selection, we visit Wendi Yamashita of the Northern California Time of Remembrance Committee. For our salad selection, we head to San Jose to talk with Will Kaku and Nina Chuang on San Jose's Day of Remembrance. For our chef special, we will be checking in with Reverend Michael Yoshii, the keynote speaker at the Bay Area Day of Remembrance in San Francisco. For dessert, our resident chef at the Nichi Bei office, Kota will demonstrate how to make an office favorite, and we say that a lot, but this time it really is true, Sukiyaki. And stick around to be treated to some news bites of happenings in our Japanese and Japanese American community. Finally, we end the program tonight with tips of events that are coming up in the next month and beyond. So without further delay, let's start the cafe. Hey everyone, Happy New Year and welcome back to Season 2, Episode 12 of the Nichi Bei Cafe. As always, this monthly program is brought to you by the Nichi Bei Foundation and Nichi Bei News through the benevolence of the Henry and Tomoya Takahashi Charitable Foundation. If you enjoy what we are doing here at the cafe, please be sure to leave a like on this video and hit that subscribe button on YouTube so that you can be notified when new content hits our channel. Also, if you are a subscriber, leave a like and comment down below if you have any suggestions for future episodes or just want to say hi. Since the late 1970s and starting in the Pacific Northwest, Japanese American communities across the country have gathered in February to commemorate the signing of Executive Order 9066 by then-President Franklin D. Roosevelt on February 1942. This set the wheels in motion to forcibly remove some 120,000 persons of Japanese ancestry from the West Coast, most of whom were American citizens, and incarcerate them in American concentration camps throughout the United States. Day of Remembrance events have helped our communities to remember, heal, and inspire the movement for redress, as well as carry the light for justice to help safeguard the civil liberties of others. This became all the more important after 9/11, when Muslim, Arab, and South Asian communities became victims of scapegoating, just like our community had been targeted after the bombing of Pearl Harbor. So, that being said, it's just to give some context to the episode. Starting off with our pastry selection tonight, we head to Sacramento to talk with one of the 2024 Northern California Time of Remembrance Committee members, Wendi Yamashita, to talk about this year's Northern California Time of Remembrance to be held on February 10th. Wendi is a professor of ethnic studies at California State University, Sacramento.
So this year we're highlighting, the title of our event is called The Myths from Enemy Aliens to Model Minority. And we are focusing on these myths and the stereotypes of both the enemy alien of World War II and the model minority. And so we are screening John Osaki's brilliant film, Not Your Model Minority. And if you haven't seen it yet, this is your chance. It is really this excellent breakdown of the model minority, its history, how it functions, and more specifically, how it relates to Japanese Americans. And then following the screening, we will be joined by John, as well as Carl Takei from Asian Law Caucus and Suda for Solidarity, and Krista Keplinger, who is a UC Davis graduate and is working as an editor of nonfiction and children books, as well as part of our Florin Sacramento Valley JCL. I'm really excited about this panel because it brings together some really brilliant folks to discuss how the model minority has personally impacted them, as Asian Americans, as Japanese Americans, as Yonsei or Sansei, so thinking about generational differences, as daughters and sons, right? And in particular, I'm looking forward to hearing about how, as a filmmaker, as a lawyer, as an editor, a student, this stereotype impacts the kind of work that they do. And this year, our committee, based on the panelists, we're really interested in how the model minority affects things like Black reparations, immigrant detention and deportation, as well as affirmative action. And my hope is that this film screening and conversation really opens up an important space for us to dialogue about how we have been impacted by stereotypes in very dangerous ways, right? And we know that as a consequence of World War II and our incarceration, but also, maybe how we have perpetuated them without knowing, right? So the model minority, and for us to really think about what it all means. And this is why we are also offering healing circles the following Thursday from 5 to 7 p.m. to really allow attendees to have that time to process information in safe spaces and to really be vulnerable. And it is a challenging topic, right? This is the model minority and talking about these stereotypes, but it's one that we feel really deserves attention and reflection. I think it's really important as a Japanese American to think about our place within the racial hierarchy of the United States within white supremacy. Part of my work within the classroom, as well as my own research and writing and community work, is to understand the ways in which we experience racism, but also the ways in which we can at sometimes perpetuate it and think about our privilege. That is the critical work of being in solidarity with other groups and being allies in ensuring a more equitable present and future for all of us. And in the classroom, the model minority has been an important topic to students. It's one that they connect to the most. It's the one they feel the most in terms of the pressures they feel as students, these kind of assumptions on who they are supposed to be. And what I do is I ground that in history. I teach them how that developed historically, how it came about through these kind of sociological reports that are rooted in anti-Blackness, right? And they begin to sort of understand how these things that personally made them feel very small, right? Very much as like this category that they have to be really intelligent and smart, right? And they begin to sort of break that down in very important ways and see it as a larger sort of systemic part of white supremacy and racism. So I think it's a really eye-opening conversation and discussion for students, and one they are really interested in having in the classroom. Yeah, so the event is going to be held Saturday, February 10th. It's from 1 to 3 p.m. and it's going to be held at the California Museum, which is 1020 O Street in Sacramento. And you can get tickets via our website, which is nctor.org. And we have a registration deadline for February 1st. Admission prices, general admission is $15, $10 for students, college students, but free for anyone under 18. And yeah, if you can just go to our website and all the information will be there.
Special thanks to Wendi, who is also a board member of the Nichi Bei Foundation, for participating in that interview. The Northern California Time of Remembrance event will be held at the California Museum on February 10th. So that being said, I think it's time for our salad. So we head to San Jose and the San Jose Day of Remembrance, organized by the Nihonmachi Outreach Committee. We speak with Will Kaku and one of their speakers, Nina Chuang, embodying the theme Youth Activism, Building Community. Their event will be held on Sunday, February 18th. Please enjoy.
We talk with Will Kaku of the Nihonmachi Outreach Committee, who programs the San Jose Day of Remembrance each year, and Nina Chuang, one of the speakers at this year's San Jose Day of Remembrance. Will explains this year's event.
And this year's theme is youth activism, building community. And that theme was inspired by a few things. First of all, over the last several years, we have seen young people rising up and affecting real change in society. And what comes to my mind immediately, first of all, was those young high school students at Parkland, Florida, who mobilized and were able to bring about new gun safety laws, which many thought were impossible. But other things that we saw young people tackle were big issues like global climate change, policing, social justice, women's rights and girls' access to education. And of course, right now, what's happening on our campuses today, the humanitarian disaster in Gaza. And we also saw that change happening at our local San Jose State University, which is just, 4 or 5 blocks from San Jose, Japantown. And this change, this movement is represented by 2 speakers in our program, former student Nina Chuang and Professor Yvonne Kwan. And Nina, who you'll hear from next, she did something remarkable. She forced the university to acknowledge their role in the execution of EO 9066 and got them to institutionalize the annual San Jose Day of Remembrance there.
Hi everyone. My name is Nina Chuang. I'm very privileged to be one of your speakers for Day of Remembrance. One of the topics that Will was talking about was the process for bringing about accountability, institutional accountability at San Jose State for their role in Executive Order 9066. So Dr. Kwan and I, in the beginning of this entire journey, we go to the SJSU archives to see what our university had in regards to Executive Order 9066. The success of a movement is not defined by like one pivotal moment, but it's like multiple moments that continue to happen together. I was taking an Asian American Studies class, and I was talking to the professor and students about this history that our school has, and it was a rumor, and I wanted to clarify. And I found out from the professor that it was true, that the institution that we were taking our Asian American Studies class was part of anti-Asian hate and part of this big part of history in our Asian American history. So Dr. Kwan and I, in the beginning of this entire journey, we go to the SJSU archives to see what our university had in regards to Executive Order 9066. So we began first by creating a digital exhibit, from the archives that we saw and the documents that we found in the library. We made this website to really put that in display and create accessibility for students to see this history. So it was like archives. It was a walk around Yamashita Hall of Walk of Remembrance with these cranes, 2,487 cranes that were folded by students. It was creating our first annual Day of Remembrance on campus, having a moment and a dedicated time for our campus to recognize and learn about this history and relearn and have intergenerational dialogue with not only the students, but also with former incarcerated folks from our community. And it was by the encouragement of so many amazing community leaders that not only we have this reckoning in our campus, but we also have this reckoning in ourselves as Asian American students, that we make our institution history ours, that we also make it our personal story so that we can continue to make sure that this history is known, for example, anyone who's a student at San Jose State, right? Any person who walks on campus should know of this institution's history, in their involvement in the incarceration of Japanese American community. You don't have to be Asian, you don't have to be a student. If you're coming onto our campus, you should recognize and know of our history, because at the end of the day, it's that quote, it's like no history, no self.
The San Jose Day of Remembrance event will be held on Sunday, February 18th, starting at 5:30 p.m. at the San Jose Buddhist Church Annex.
Thanks to Will and Nina for that great interview. Their event will be held at the San Jose Buddhist Church Betsuin Annex on February 18th. So now let's check out our chef special. We will now speak with retired pastor Reverend Michael Yoshii of the Buena Vista United Methodist Church in Alameda. Reverend Yoshii will be the keynote speaker at the 2024 Bay Area Day of Remembrance on February 17th in San Francisco's Japantown. This year's theme is Carrying the Light for Justice, Finding Our Way Home. He will also talk about his work with the Palestinians and why it is so important for the Japanese American community to support them.
Reverend Michael Yoshii, a retired Methodist minister and co-chair for the Friends of Wadi Fokin, a Palestinian village, shares his perspective of the Palestinian situation from his years traveling on Methodist pilgrimages and missions to Palestine, and as a Japanese American who testified at the 1981 redress hearings.
Well, I am a United Methodist clergy. I'm now retired, and in my retirement, I co-chair the group called Friends of Wadi Fokin. But it was through the Methodist connection that I first went to Palestine in 2006, where we had a representative from the Methodist Church serving in the West Bank. Her name was Sandy Olawine, and she brought Methodists from across the country to Palestine for a conference that she was organizing. And the focal point for the conference was really about the boycott, divestment, sanctions movement that had gotten started around that time, around 2005, 2006, by the Palestinian civil society organizations who had put a call out for BDS. And they were really modeling that after South African apartheid-free movement in the 80s, where divestment was a really important nonviolent tool for the liberation of South Africa. And having done a lot of work with the Japanese American community around post-traumatic stress disorder and intergenerational trauma and how certain things continue to live with us, and having been through working on redress and trying to, I was part of folks that were doing outreach for people to come out to congressional hearing in San Francisco in 1981, and you know how emotional that was for people to even think about that, and then just the whole process of what occurred over that decade to the passing of redress in 1988 and subsequent, that there was continued to be emotions that were stirred when people would talk about their history, family stories, and so forth. I think many of those were triggered for me when I went to Palestine for the first time, and particularly listening to people struggling with the reality that their stories were not heard and told, particularly in the US. And I began to understand how the suppression of their stories was similar to the suppression of our stories as Japanese Americans, particularly for me growing up in the 50s and the 60s, where it was not in textbooks in schools. It was not something that was commonly understood. And when we were going through that time of trying to have our story understood, people coming out to congressional hearings and telling the story for the first time, say publicly sanctioned by a governmental commission, how impactful that was for me in hearing Palestinians share their story of the Nakba, what they consider their history from 1948, where there were 750,000 plus persons who became refugees, where 500 villages were destroyed, where upwards to 15 to 20,000 people were killed. For us to help tell their story, really resonated with me as a Japanese American, also as a Methodist clergy person, but I think really personally as a Japanese American. And then also hearing stories of people who were losing their farmland and people who were losing, who've lost businesses, reminded me of what my own family had lost. My grandfather had a farm in Fresno, and he lost that when they went to Jerome. My father's family had a restaurant in, I think my grandfather had a farm in Fresno when they went to Jerome. And then my father's family had a restaurant in Oakland that they lost when they went to Topaz. And so our communities were dismantled in many respects, and many of our people coming back from the war had to rebuild, but they didn't have communities to go back to rebuild. And there's this whole thing today about, preserving Japan towns that goes on in our communities today. But consider what happened to the Palestinians who were displaced and could not go back to their homes and could not go back to their communities, or lost land and farming land, orchards, businesses that they couldn't go back to, which has been one of the big issues for Palestinians, the right of return back to their homes. Well, it's really an honor for me to be invited to share the keynote speech for this coming Bay Area Day of Remembrance. And, if you ask me what my intent would be, is first of all, to educate our community on the reality for Palestinians. I have a short story to share. I had a Palestinian friend here in the Bay Area. He was originally from Jerusalem, from a Palestinian family. The family still had some properties there, but it was hard for him to go visit because of the restrictions that are placed on Palestinians to come back to their homelands. But he passed away a couple of years ago. And I remember going to the service and then to the reception afterwards. It was kind of very similar to whenever we have funerals or memorial services for people in the Japanese American community. We always end up at a church somewhere for a reception afterwards with a lot of great Japanese food. In this case, we were at a church social hall and had a lot of Palestinian food there. But I sat down with some of the family members, and somebody introduced me to one of the family members and mentioned that I was Japanese American, and I had been doing a lot of things in support for the Palestinian cause. And as we sat there, this person turned to me and he said, "I have a question for you." And I said, "What's that?" And he says, "I, as a Palestinian, had a good Japanese American friend, and I knew the story of Japanese American mass incarceration and the whole history of their immigration and the generations and so forth, the Issei and Issei and Sansei and Yonseis and the whole story. I think as I learned it from him and from his family members," he said, "but for the life of me, I don't think he ever asked me about my history as a Palestinian and my family and how we became refugees and ended up in this country. And I'm wondering, why don't Japanese Americans know about our history as Palestinians?" And I sat there sort of dumbfounded for a moment, because I have worked in different circles trying to do more education in the Japanese American community with others, and particularly who've been there to the region and people that have been on some of our trips. And I had come to the conclusion that Japanese Americans are perhaps no different than many other American communities, including communities of color and the mainstream Caucasian communities, where we're not exposed to the real history of the Palestinians. And that's partly because of what I would call the suppression and the censoring of the Palestinian story in America, in our media in particular, in academia, in our school systems, even in our religious institutions. The story that is told is mostly from the Israeli narrative, and we see this when you consider the number of trips that are taken to the Holy Land. I would say a good 90% of them are done with an Israeli narrative. It's illegal for Palestinian tour guides to even talk about their stories, or they will get penalized as a tour guide. They can even lose their jobs if they speak about their Palestinian stories. And that's why in our partnership, Friends of Wadi Faqim, when we take people there, we intentionally have our tour guide speak about the Palestinian history. And so the first thing I would say in terms of my intention as a keynote speaker is to educate our community on the Palestinian narrative so that we can become more educated, because I believe the more educated we are about the situation, then it becomes a clear sense of justice making that we can then turn to justice making and advocacy.
Thanks so much to Greg for that story. The Bay Area Day of Remembrance is the second oldest day of remembrance in the United States, and it is celebrating its 45th year and will be held at the AMC Kabuki Theater on Saturday, February 17th. This year's theme is Carrying the Light for Justice, Finding Our Way Home. In this next segment, our office chef and my favorite advertising manager, Kota Marikawa, serves up an office favorite, Sukiyaki. Please enjoy. But not as much as we have.
Welcome to Kota's Kitchen and Happy New Year, everybody. Thank you for watching Kota's Kitchen. This is a cooking show that you cook lunch for your friends, colleague, and your boss in an office setting like this. Today is a special day. Finally, yes, Sukiyaki. In Nichi Bei, Sukiyaki has been the dish that I've been cooking since COVID started. Kota's Kitchen became a reality because of Sukiyaki that we enjoy here. So let's get started. So first, let's make the Sukiyaki sauce. And I have a measuring cup here. I don't like to measure things, but to make it the best taste, let's measure it this time. Maybe I can ask my colleague to do it. Wes. Hi, Wes.
Hello.
Could you mix this?
I'll be glad.
Thank you so much. Right, so while my colleague Wes is mixing up the sauce, I'm going to cook the meat first. Sukiyaki, usually beef.
Well done.
Oh, thank you so much, Wes. All right, so hot plate is about 200. Let's put the meat all in. This is a thin sliced beef. It's not like a steak, like this thick. So when you buy beef for sukiyaki, please make sure that it's thin sliced. Next, the ingredient is green onion. This time I just dump all in. And this green onion is coming from my garden. This beef and green onion is the only those that we cook before saucing. Great thing about this skillet, you don't need much oil. Actually, I'm not using any oil this time. Oil is coming from this beef. So what I can do right now is I separate meat all around and then put green onion to the side. Oh, this is totally up to your choice. If you want to mix all up, that's fine. But at least this is a cooking show, so I have to kind of make it presentable. All right, now I have a room for other ingredients. Ingredients number one. It's a chopped Napa cabbage. So I will put in. And this Napa cabbage will give you lots of water inside. Okay, and number two. What do I have? Yes, chopped daikon. Actually, daikon is not usually the sukiyaki ingredient, but I just had it in my kitchen, in my refrigerator. So I'm going to just use it. And then carrot. All right, ingredients number three. It's going to be tofu. Tofu is coming from soybean. One of the most healthiest, I think, food in the world.
So soybean, it's transferred to miso, tofu, natto. If you don't like natto, oh man, I'm sorry. Natto is one of the best nutritious and healthiest food in the world.
Right, and then this is noodle konjac. It's called shirataki. think I forgot to mention shiitake mushroom. Now sauce will be in. We use this for the later. All right, now we are going to cover this. Let's find out how my sukiyaki. All right, so looks like napa cabbage is cooked and the daikon, carrots. All right, last ingredients. So, like I said, shungiku, and in the last minutes, I decided to put spinach. It's also untraditional, but it's good for you. They are going to be cooked very, very quick. So, just put it in and cover it. Let's see. Whew. Yes, shungiku, spinach, and enoki is kind of cooked. This is done. It's ready to eat. However, there's one more part that I would like to introduce here. So traditionally, we eat sukiyaki with a raw egg. Raw egg? Yeah, raw egg. So this is a good organic egg. This is for only those who wants to try it. I don't force you.
And then, yeah, put the meat in and some vegetable in. Then eat.
All right, let me taste. Best sukiyaki ever. All right, everybody, let's eat. Oh, by the way, if you like this show, don't forget to subscribe, and then please check out my past Kota's Kitchen. I will put it in information. Thank you.
Many thanks to Kota for that delicious office treat. It's always amazing to see what he can do on one electric skillet on his own. No one helps him. So, in the office, while everybody is working. So, always a pleasure to have the smell of sukiyaki in the office. Next up, we share some noteworthy stories from the community news files. So, let's roll the news bites. The news bites roll it. Director, roll the news bites. Next is our News Bites, highlighting events over the past month or so, including stories from the pages of the Nichi Bei News. And Alicia's in Japan.
First up are a couple of events celebrating Japanese New Year's. The API Legal Outreach, the Japanese Cultural and Community Center of Northern California, the Japanese Community Youth Council, and the Hamilton Senior Center hosted the 2024 Oshogatsu Festival on January 6th to celebrate the Year of the Dragon. The festivities included cultural arts and crafts, entertainment, omochitsuki, shikishi art, food, and screen printing. Japantown artists silkscreened a Year of the Dragon design on t-shirts for free, and artist Leland Wong drew dragons for children. The festival also hosted a children's art contest for preschool through 5th grade age children with the theme of the Year of the Dragon. Upstairs in the gym, there were activities for kids, while downstairs hosted food, t-shirt silk screening, and mochitsuki.
In San Jose's Japantown, UIKAI Japanese American Community Senior Service and the Wesley United Methodist Church collaborated on an annual Mochitsuki event on December 29th. Some 200 volunteers washed 1,500 pounds of rice to make 2,200 pounds of mochi. That's a lot of mochi. There was a last-minute search for an usu, or mortar, to use for the mochi pounding experience for Camp Mochi. An organizer found a stone usu at the Japanese Museum of San Jose that was being used as a bird bath.
As 2023 came to a close, the Seattle Betsun Buddhist Temple became the target of an arson fire which destroyed thousands of irreplaceable historical documents, which dated back to 1901, reports the Wheel of Dharma editor John Kawamoto. Earlier in the day, an estimated 280 people had gathered at the Seattle Betsun for the Joe, or New Year's Eve service, at noon on December 31st. The arson fire forced the cancellation of the New Year's Day service on January 1st. According to Seattle Fire, the blaze reignited as a flare-up but caused much more damage to the archival area. Waylon Williams of Richland, Washington was charged on January 4th with first-degree reckless burning, second-degree burglary, and residential burglary, according to the charging documents. For more updates, including how you can contribute to the Arson Restoration Fund, visit seattlebetsuin.org/fire.
For more up-to-date news like this, please be sure to subscribe to the Nichi Bei News, carrying on a legacy of 125 years of community leadership through media at www.nichibei.org/subscribe. A lot of things are happening in the community this spring, like our co-host suddenly joining us for this segment. So, hello.
I've been here.
Okay, well.
God.
Next up, we have a calendar of upcoming events, but first we would like to thank everyone for continuing to support our YouTube channel, and we hope that you enjoy our future content featuring our Japanese and Japanese American community.
So continue to support us by telling your friends, family, and loved ones to subscribe to our YouTube channel so they don't miss a single episode of our program, as well as other video segments from the show and other special videos in between. That said, it's time for tonight's tips, which will include our community calendar.
And also, please save the date for our 13th annual Films of Remembrance, a showcase of films commemorating the forced removal and incarceration of the Japanese American community during World War II. This year, we will present 12 films on Saturday, February 24th at the AMC Kabuki 8 in San Francisco's Japantown, and Sunday, February 25th at the San Jose Betsuin Buddhist Church in San Jose's Japantown as well. So there will be a virtual streaming option for those who can't make the physical location, and there will be a menu of films somewhere on the screen.
Hopefully. Well, everyone, thanks for joining us on our 12th and final episode of Season 2, featuring stories on Days of Remembrance events in the community.
We hope that you enjoyed our show today and wish you and your family a great start to the year of 2024 as we welcome the Year of the Dragon.
At this point, we want to say a big thanks to the Henry and Tomoya Takahashi Charitable Foundation for their continued support of the cafe. We greatly appreciate our collaboration with you in finding new ways to engage our Nikkei community.
We are proud to have recently received funding from the Takahashi Foundation for a Season 3, that's 3, yeah, 2 plus 1, of the Nichi Bei Cafe starting next month.
In this episode, we celebrated stories honoring a dark chapter of history in our community as well as all over the country. It's important that we remember what happened during World War II so that such deprivation of civil liberties does not happen again to anybody.
We hope that you enjoyed what we and, of course, all of our featured chefs cooked up for the cafe menu today. So
Thanks again for joining us at the Nichi Bei Cafe.
I take my space. Swim in it. I gotta feel it. Because if I don't feel it, I can't deliver. And if I don't deliver, y'all don't get this episode. For dessert, our tips of Vince. Oh my god, it's so long. Sorry, liberties. Civil liberties of others, bruh. Not that complicated. It's not that complicated, man. I don't know why. Tell me why. And we'll be will have held at the AMC. Sorry.
Use your muscles. Okay, let's go.
What muscle? I'm dancing. I'm dancing. It's hand on that, but hand away. Hand on that, but hand away.
What do you mean old days? It never changed.
Nobody's ever been on my side.
I'm on your side as
What?
the co-host is.
Whatever.
As
Anyway.
your co-host, I'm always on your left. As well as video segments from the show and other special videos in between. That said, it's...
What is happening? I'm just here. This is your world and I'm just living in it. Sorry. Can I please have a little bit of mizu?